Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Day 4 of the 2018 Côte d'Ivoire Rapid and Blitz Invitational, where 10 of the very best players in all of Africa compete for a $15,000 prize fund. My name is Ben Simon.
I'm Robert Hungaski.
And we have excitement for you because today is the Blitz. This is a full round robin of Blitz you'll be seeing here today at chess24.com, and tomorrow we'll finish it up with the final rounds. But, you know, I welcomed everybody to the Côte d'Ivoire Rapid and Blitz Invitational. We could be saying, welcome to the Bassem Amin show, because that's what's been happening today, Robert.
Yeah, and just now, they were able to stop this furious winning streak that Bassem Amin was on. I mean, he had won something like 6 games in a row.
Well, a grand total of 9 games in a row.
Right.
He won all 6 of his first Blitz games today, and his 7th round, he just was drawn against by Mokhlis El Adnani. So the streak is over.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
wow, and I mean, this tournament, it's is the book shut at this point? Has he clinched this thing?
I think so. I mean, we have 9 rounds left tomorrow, plus the 2 rounds that we're going to be covering right now. But considering that, you know, these games aren't weighted as the rapid portion was, I think it's pretty much in the bag because he's established a hefty lead. I mean, something like 6 points. So,
right. Well, he was the favorite coming in. Let's take a look at the field that is competing in this tournament. If you're joining us for the first time, this is the range of characters we have. The best players in Africa, 3 of the top 10 players by FIDE ranking, 10 players, 10 nations represented, with Grandmaster Dr. Bassem Amin at the top by any metric, 200 points higher than his opponents. Now, let's take a look at the tournament format. If you're not familiar, this is the same format as the Rapid and Blitz events in the Grand Chess Tour. Although not a part of the tour, it's directly using those rules. Now, for the past 3 days, we've seen Rapid play, a full round robin played, and they were playing for the handicap on how they were coming in today. How many points ahead of everybody else are you going to be? Because each game was worth 2 points. Now it's regular Blitz. 1 point per game, a half point for a draw, today and tomorrow. 9 rounds today, 9 rounds tomorrow, and keep in mind, there's no increment in these games. Game in 5 minutes with a 3-second delay. This is going to be fast, this is going to be furious, and very, very exciting from Abidjan in the Ivory Coast. But let's take a look at the standings. So this is after Blitz round 7. Okay, today we have round 8 and we have round 9. So it's after Blitz round 7. But you can see that Bassem Amin, there we go, is 21.5 points grand total. Unbelievable, Robert.
nah, it's over.
There's 9 rounds. You don't think
it's over.
9 rounds tomorrow, 2 rounds
Smart
today?
money is on Amin.
Okay. Well, hey, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at some of the contenders here. Feature guys like Mohamed Hadouche and Kenny Solomon. And hey, they're playing in the next round, by the way. So we'll see, you know, who's going to be in second place while keeping Bassem Amin in our pocket as our expected winner. So we're going to take a look at some of today's games here in just a moment, but I'd like to address the prize fund, because you know this is the richest prize fund in the history of quick tournaments in all of Africa.
Talk to me about the money.
I will. $15,000 grand total on the line.
Show me the money.
And that Bassem Amin first prize. Well, I'm going to try my best to jinx the guy, by the way.
Yeah.
First place, $5,000. What a tournament. And what a time to be a competitor at Hotel Tiama right now. This is really something. And we have some live video we'll be bringing to you today of some of these Blitz games. It's going to be very important to see as much as we can of the board because, like we said, the action's going to be really fast. And I know you were looking at the games earlier, Robert, of action that happened in the 7 rounds today already.
Yeah, well, you know, when we looked at rapid games, we sort of hold the players up to a certain standard, and they didn't disappoint us because the games were very interesting and very, you know, complicated. Sparks were flying pretty much on every turn. However, I think that's kind of unfair. You know, when we're talking about Blitz, you know, emotions are riding high, like you mentioned. You know, there's money at play, and maybe play becomes a little bit too speculative. So instead of focusing on, you know, trying to dissect the profound ideas, I thought we should look at some of the bloopers. You know, some of the
Blitz bloopers.
the Blitz bloopers. Absolutely.
What round do we have here? Are you looking at Blitz round 5?
Let's see what I have here. I wanted to start off with a game from round 4 between Andrew Kayonde and Bassem Amin. Now, am I at the right round here?
I think you're in round 5 right now.
I am? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So give me
Okay, Blitz 4 is what we're looking for.
Blitz 4.
Andrew Kayonde of Zambia, the 6-time Zambian national champion.
Okay, actually, I pulled up a different game because I messed up all the round numbers. But this is still one of the games that I wanted to talk about between Hadouche and Silva.
All right, from
So-
Blitz 4.
Didn't really want to go through the whole game, but I did think that there was an interesting blunder here in this position. White has defended very well and got a pretty complicated position out of the opening, and just when it seems like he's out of the woods, plays the move Rook D1, allowing Queen takes D5, just winning a piece in one move. Look at this. Now after E takes D5, you're not only going to lose your piece, you're going to lose a second piece. After Rook takes E2 check, the king moves, and your bishop's also hanging. So this is a fairly common pattern. Once you've defended a difficult position, you let your guard down, and you miss some silly tactic. So we're going to be seeing a lot of this today, and probably in the rounds to come as well.
You know, I was playing some Blitz outside the chess club just last night, and maybe we'll see some games that will remind me of the street games we were playing last night.
I was
out on
watching some
Maryland.
of your games. Yeah, some of them should be up here as well.
Yes.
But anyway, I wanted to pull up another funny position.
Is this from, what round is this?
This is from the same round. This is
Okay.
round 5. And, okay, to be fair, Black's position is anything but encouraging. But after bishop c5, Black could still try to maybe run away with his king after king f8, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, king g8, and White is up a healthy pawn, has connected past pawns in the center. But instead, Black thought to threaten checkmate in one move, which is usually not a bad idea. But here, after rook e1,
Oh, he saw it.
yeah, he didn't see it actually. He played queen takes c7, which fortunately is still good enough.
Oh.
And Black resigned, because if you go king to f8, I'm still going to win your queen. And if you go king to f6, well, I take your bishop, and you're not threatening checkmate anymore. So after queen takes c7, Black resigned. So,
And we just want to remind you, as we are about 7 minutes away from Blitz round 8, you can watch all of the games live at chess24.com, and be sure to check out africachessmedia.com for all the stories and updates regarding this tournament.
excellent. So those two games I just showed you were from one single round. We have 9 rounds today.
7's already happened.
So I'm going to let you do some of the math on that. And round 8 is coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah, just about 5 minutes away at the half-hour mark.
All right, so you want to see a couple more
Yeah, let's
little
take a
crazy
look.
blunders?
At least
All right.
one more. I dig it.
So here we have a game from our, well, if I want to jinx him too, I would call him our soon-to-be champion, but that's your thing.
We're really trying to jinx him, right?
Yeah.
I don't even believe in jinxing him.
Well, anyway, Bassem Amin has been playing the King's Indian like an expert, and it's interesting because he plays very similar systems with White and with Black. So he plays the King's Indian attack as White, and then he plays the King's Indian as Black. And he's been getting good positions in pretty much every game. This was not the exception. So the knight on c6 is hanging, and the first thing when one of your pieces is threatened, your first reaction is probably, let me move it away, right? So with a move like knight takes e5, maybe knight takes, pawn takes, it does look like Black's position is better. The White king is exposed. I'm sure Bassem was feeling pretty comfortable at this point. However, White thought, well, let me protect my knight. And unfortunately, after queen d5, you're setting yourself up for a nasty pin. And after knight a5, your knight is trapped on c6. So another unfortunate blunder here. And not the only blunder of the round. In fact, there was a marathon game between El Adnani and Rako Tomoharo. I think I'm getting closer to pronouncing that name correctly, but let's see if I can find the correct position here. After bishop c4, white played rook a8. Now, when you look at this position, the last thing that comes to your mind is that white actually won this game. Because if we do a quick count of the pieces, we see that black is about to win a bishop. And in the game, he played bishop takes f1, which was a huge blunder because now after bishop d6, white's going to get the piece back. But here, black could have played the simple rook takes f1 check, and after king g2, bishop d5, king takes f1, bishop takes a8, and we retain our extra piece. Now, missing these kinds of opportunities usually carries a high cost. And in this game, it carried the highest because it was actually white who ended up winning. So Rako Tomoharo definitely kicking himself for this one.
And now both of these players, as it stands right now going into round 8, are at 13.5 points. I mean, if you take out Bosma, I mean, the rest of the field is pretty close. You know, it's kind of exciting to see who's going to...
The standings for second place are wide open.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of excitement for the rest of the field, you could say. But I think Bosma, I mean, is in the driver's seat. And the thing is, he's playing so well that, you know, it's not like he's, you know, swindling his opponents in lost positions. He's playing very well, so there's no reason to believe that he's not going to be able to keep up this pace. So that's what impresses me the most.
Yeah, now he's playing like there really is a 200-point rating gap between him and the rest of the field.
Yeah, so in the long run, it seems like these gaps in rating do have some correlation.
We have less than 3 minutes until round number 8. Robert,
Okay.
do we dare take a look at another one? Do we dare?
Do you think you can handle it?
I don't know. Can you handle it?
I can handle it. I got 2 more for you from round 7. This is the round that just ended.
Let's do one more. Let's do one more.
Right.
All right. Round 7.
So here we have a position between the game Segwani and Silva. After queen e7, I think black is pretty happy. I mean, he got this knight on the beautiful f5 outpost. He's got a better pawn structure. We see that white has an isolated pawn on h4. Backward pawn on f2. But nevertheless, these are weaknesses that white should be able to keep control of. However, white got a little bit too excited here, played f4, and after knight e3, got forked, lost in exchange, and actually very soon blundered another piece, well, a pawn in this case, after knight takes d4, and you know, white said, okay, that's enough. Today, this is not my game, and simply resigned. And in this same round, the game between Rako Tomoharo and Oladapo Adu also led to an interesting blunder, but a blunder that in this case wasn't really taken advantage of. So we see white completely dominating in this position along the c-file. And after the move rook takes c6, black isn't able to play rook takes c6 because after d takes, rook takes, we have queen d5 check, and we pick up the rook. So instead, black figured, okay, I'll just leave that rook on c6, and everything will be okay. So he played f takes e4. And funny thing, after queen c2, black has no moves because we're threatening to play rook takes c7, and if rook takes c6, now d takes c6, queen c7, c takes d7, and you can take my queen on c2, but now I'm going to take your rook with check, and when you take back rook takes, we start counting the pieces, and we see that white is very much ahead in material and pretty much a resignable position. But instead, white played f takes e4. Of course, his position was amazing, and he ended up winning anyway, but I thought that was a nice little tactic.
Absolutely.
So, how are we doing with the time?
Well, the rounds have just gotten, the round 8 has just gotten what am I saying? Gotten underway. So let's take a look at the matchups that we'll be seeing in Blitz round number 8, and you can see at chess24.com. Now, we're going to be focusing on one game almost exclusively per round since it's Blitz. It's going to be fast and it's going to be furious. And this round, let's take a look at number 2 versus number 3 in the live standings. I'm talking about Grandmaster Mohamed Amin Hadoush against Grandmaster Kenny Solomon. It's Algeria versus South Africa. So, right now we actually do have a live image, if it's possible to pull that up, of Hadoush and Solomon at the board. It's unclear if we can, if we have that, but let's take a look. There they are. Look at that.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the magic of Facebook Live. How about that? And we got to give a shout out to Babatunde Ogunsiku, the head of African Chess Media. He is the one who is basically manning this camera right now, allowing us to see this. So we get into like a scramble. This is going to be very helpful. So what do we have so far, Robert?
So this was an Italian opening. It's pretty clear. Usually what we want to look out for in the Italian opening, at least as black, is that our light squares don't become too weak, especially these f5 and d5 squares. So black is playing d5 with the hope that white is going to go something like e takes, and after queen takes, expose this weak backward pawn on d3, which is going to be very easy to pressure along the d file. So generally speaking, against d5, we don't want to take e takes d5 unless we can create some kingside attack based on a quick knight g3, knight f5, and who knows, maybe even some sacrifices on h6. But for that, we would already need the queen on f3, the knight on g3, and the knight on going to f5. So I'm guessing white is going to play something like queen f3. So actually, that's exactly what happened in the game. So after d5, queen f3, d4, takes, queen d6, knight g3, queen e6, b4, knight e7. So we see black taking some measures to take these squares under control. So knight f1, rerouting the knight to e3, and again, eyeing the f5 and d5 squares. Let's see how black's going to answer here. Because you can never go g6, because then your h6 pawn is going to be hanged. Let's not forget there's a bishop still on c1 here. So, also maybe after knight e3 we're going to be able to play bishop takes e... Whoa.
What happened?
What happened? Did we lose?
Is it the same game?
It is. What's going... Oh, there we go. It's back. There we go. Scary.
I have no idea what happened. Okay. All right.
I was testing you. So
good test.
So black goes knight h7. So hoping maybe to play something like knight to g5 and neutralize the action of the bishop on c1, and maybe trying to, you know, make your queen retreat a little bit, because this queen looks somewhat threatening on f3, and maybe now it's not going to be so easy to play bishop e3, bishop takes, knight takes, because after knight g5 you're going to have some pressure against e4. For example, if queen e2, I don't think I can go g6 yet, because then you can go h4, and well, I could do this actually. So after knight h7, white plays knight f5, hoping that against knight takes, pawn takes, this will expose the pawn on b7. And this kind of pawn structure would be very sad for black, because now we're going into an endgame with a completely shattered queenside. This is not good. Of course, we shouldn't rush to take these pawns, because now after bishop takes f2, king takes, we simply lose the exchange. So we need to be a little bit careful. But with that beautiful pawn structure, I think that white would be close to winning in that endgame. So we can't really take on f5 yet. Now, maybe we can play something like knight g5. Again, trying to destabilize this queen, so that after bishop takes, pawn takes, we can try to kick this knight out with g6 and not have to be afraid of our weak pawn on h6. So let's see if we have some moves. Is this actually what happened? He took and played queen c6? I have a hard time believing. Maybe this is...
the live shot shows the queen on e6.
Yeah, no, so this is just the analysis. They haven't made... Or, oh, this actually did happen.
Yeah,
He took
okay.
on f5 and played queen c6. I'm very surprised.
Actually, it looks like the live video is actually on more of a delay than the board, which is bizarre.
Maybe, but we do have this endgame on the board, and I can't believe black went for this. I mean, what if I just go bishop e3 instead of taking on a6, which is what we were looking at? Now imagine something like bishop takes, knight takes. Okay, you go knight f6, I go knight c4. But I have all these nice targets, right? On the queen side and in the center. This endgame should be close to lost. So after bishop e3, black played bishop b6, hoping that you'll jump the gun and take on b6, allowing black to fix his pawn structure a little bit. But white goes rook a4, intending to double up on the a file and gang up on this isolated a6 pawn. So, do we have any more moves? Rook a4, and it's black to move. Black is probably thinking, oh man, what did I get myself into?
Well, and black is now looking at a big time deficit. Remember, this is game in 5 with just a 3-second delay.
Yeah, so usually the time trouble follows the bad position, because when you think, oh, I made a mistake, my position's bad, then you have to start solving a lot more problems than you would if you were, say, on the pressing side. So I'm sure that black is trying to find some counter-attacking move with rook e5 to put pressure on f5, but I don't think that would really solve much, because let's say I go g4. Now if you go a5, I'm not going to play b takes a5 and trade off one of your main weaknesses. Instead, I'm just going to increase the pressure with rook a1. And at some point, I will take on a5 when it wins material. So let's see. In the game, after rook a4, black went knight to f6. So hoping maybe to bring this knight to d5. So I'm wondering, what does black have in mind after the move rook a1? Because if you go knight d5, I think I can just take here. And after takes, if you trade everything on e3, this endgame is not really going to help you too much, because I don't know if you've ever heard this idea, but rooks, it's a general principle more than an idea, rooks are the best piece to take advantage of pawn weaknesses. So when you see pawn weaknesses on the board, you should usually try to keep your rooks on. That is, if your opponent is the one with the pawn weaknesses. If you have the weaknesses, try to trade off all the rooks as soon as possible. So it's important not to think of rook endgames as drawish, which I think is a common mistake. Also, you see this a lot with opposite color bishops. So let's see. After knight to f6, white played the move c4. I'm not so sure about this move. It looks like it weakens the b4 pawn, and now black is going for some counterplay along the b file. I think c4 was a mistake, because now if you go rook takes a6, rook takes b4, rook takes c6, I could go rook takes b2. Maybe do I have enough time to go rook e7? I don't know. Maybe just rook takes b2, rook takes c7, and try to get both of my rooks on the 7th rank. If black is able to achieve this, he should have enough compensation for the pawn. So this is actually what happened in the game. You're right, there might be a little bit of a lag on the camera.
Right.
Because unless we can see the future, can we? I don't know. Yeah, rook takes b2, rook takes c7, and this is what we have. But I think black has done some progress here, because this rook can come to a8 and a2. True, we're down a pawn, and it's a fairly important pawn, because this could easily get out of hand for us, especially since we don't have the c2 square for our rook to try to control this pawn, because the knight is controlling c2. I'm sure white is still better, but I'm thinking, okay, if something like rook a8, c5, rook a2, I can always go rook f1 probably. And I've neutralized your main threat, and now I can start pushing my c-pawn. But also, this rook, the rook generally doesn't want to be in front of its pawn. It wants to be in back. So if this c7 rook were on c1, I would say white is probably winning. But, whoa. So
What's going on here?
what is going on here? So after rook takes c7, black went rook b8, rook a1, rook c8, takes. So he went for a different approach. He's just trying to stop this pawn from moving forward. Rook c5, g4, king f8, king g2, knight e8, rook d7, rook c6. So black tried to buckle down and say, okay, I'm just going to do damage control. I'm not trying to get active play and compensate the pawn. I'm just trying to hold you back and put pressure on c4, and maybe after knight d6 I can actually get my pawn back. And let's not forget that if white loses this pawn, or even if we trade c4 for e4, this 4 against 3 that white is going to have left on the king side is probably not going to be enough to win the game. So that is a very interesting defensive strategy. So after knight e8, king g3, knight d6, c5, a little bit of a tactic. You can't take the pawn because the knight is hanging, so the knight has to go back. But how are you going to protect this guy now? I think black's defensive strategy here is paying off. I think that if something like this happens, black has very good chances of holding, because white is not going to be able to create, at least not easily, a passed pawn with these double pawns. So
what, you think it might be a draw with best play here?
yeah, and even with not necessarily best play, you do have some margin of error as black here. And this is actually what happened after, what did we see? Knight e8, rook d5, knight f6, rook e5, knight d7, rook takes c5. And we get to this 4 against 3, which I don't really see amounting to much. I mean, sure, white is going to try to push a little bit, but I'm fairly optimistic about black's position, considering how terrible it was at that point when we transitioned from the opening / middle game to this endgame.
And we could just see in the lower right, the players blitzing off a few moves. They're down to just about, well, Kenny's down to about 10 seconds. If you want to see these games live, go to chess24.com. You'll see the live digital boards right there.
We see black maybe threatening a nice little tactic here with knight takes f5, getting back that pawn. So how can white deal with this? Maybe just get the rook out? Maybe g6, with the idea that if you go knight takes f5, I go rook takes f7 check, and I'll take the knight on the next move. So, whoa, these moves are coming in fast.
So it just skipped to the newest position, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So actually, I'm kind of curious to see how we got here. So,
right
after rook d7 check, rook d4, f6. So takes. See, and I'm not so crazy about playing the move f6. I would have gone g6 trying to get rid of my doubled pawns, but here, this knight endgame, usually knight endgames are considered similar to king and pawn endgames. So if you want to know how you're doing in the knight endgame, just take the knights off the board and try to evaluate the king and pawn endgame. If you reach the conclusion that the king and pawn endgame is winning, then adding knights shouldn't really change the evaluation. So that's kind of a handy practical rule. So let's see. After some maneuvering, we get this position. And the thing
all these players, they're going so fast. Can we get a full shot of the board by chance? There
oh,
we go.
Nice. Yep. So knight d4, king e4, knight d7. Yeah. Black really wants to chop down that f2 pawn. That way he can sacrifice his knight for the remaining pawn, and it's just an easy draw. What's he going to do? Remember, we don't have increment here, so
3-second delay, that's all you get.
black only has 8 seconds left and is banking on that 3-second delay. Now, do you know if an illegal move loses the game, or do you get 2?
I I believe I don't think it'll lose the game. No,
Because knights are pretty
That's all
tricky
I
that
can
way.
say.
You know, it's very easy
right.
to forget that you're in check. I've actually lost a game recently that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is played under the auspices of the Ivorian Chess Federation and FIDE, I'm sure.
So if they're playing by FIDE rules, the rule currently states that you get 2 illegal moves before you lose the game.
Is that a recent rule change? I feel like
It
they
is.
had
It
a
is.
recent
Before
change.
before with 1 illegal move, you lost the game immediately. Now you get 2. You get 2 strikes. Whoa.
Oh, we're getting a little grainy.
Okay, we're back.
This is a long-distance video right here, folks.
Yeah, so I think this is just going to fizzle out into a draw. I mean, the problem when you have such little time is that you're kind of in denial. You know, you don't have enough time to really make a cold assessment of the position. I'm sure both sides know that it's a draw, but they just want to, take a second to breathe and just ask themselves, okay, what's going on here? Now, Mike needs to be a little bit careful here because what just happened? He's moving his king a little bit too far away from the f7 pawn.
Hadush is... what does that mean? What does that gesture mean?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
put
he's
your
doing
arms
this a lot. I'm like, is he claiming like his opponent made an illegal move or something?
Well, he didn't make an official claim.
Yeah.
Maybe he's thinking that there's a repetition.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think there was something odd going.
It looks like me and my opponent outside yesterday.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh no! Come on, video.
Although Hadush is
All
missing
right.
that pink drink that you had. What was that?
It was a cranberry juice. It was delicious.
It was only cranberry juice?
Of course.
Okay, maybe.
Gosh. Well, it looks like we lost the video feed, but the game is a draw.
Yep.
So that means that both of the players, they get a half point. They were tied at 14, and so now they will... I think they were tied at 14. So now they're 14 and a half each.
Yeah.
So still tied for second and
So
third place.
we can understand why they were playing that game out because a win would have positioned them in clear second.
Oh, absolutely, and it's so important right now. I mean, you're talking about a difference of a grand, But all of the games have been completed. We're going to have some time to take a look at some of the other games that happened that round. But before we do, let's glance at the standings with just one Blitz game left to go today. Okay, yeah, Bassem Amin, it looks like he won again. No surprise there. But then we have 15 and a half points. Yeah, pardon me, my math was incorrect. 15 and a half points for Hadush and Solomon. And then a little bit of a log jam after that. 4-way tie for fourth. I mean, we kind of know who the major players are going to be at this point. We'll glance at some of the games as they happen. But what other games catch your eye here, Robert, from round number 8?
Well, I'm always gravitating towards the Bassem games.
Right. We got to look at the winner.
Yeah, because he can't stop winning. It's like he can't not win, even if he tries.
Well, he's first of all, he's undefeated in this entire tournament. And he's undefeated. He's had a 9-game winning streak that crossed over from the Rapid to the Blitz and just ended today. I mean, it was mostly today, but very
do
impressive.
you remember what the last game he played was before that winning streak started?
No.
Do you remember that game where he blundered his queen? He was down a queen for basically nothing in an endgame. He had like a queen against a rook. It was some ridiculous position that he ended up drawing. We interviewed him after. How can you not remember this?
It was
Okay.
it was the second day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, this could be a turning point in the tournament because when you have this lucky break, then everything starts falling into place. And sure enough, after that game, Bassem won, 9 games in a row?
Yeah.
3 in the Rapid, 6 in the Blitz.
Mm-hmm.
Then he drew 1 game, and now he won again. So he's got 10 and a half out of the last 11. That's
pretty impressive.
That's pretty good.
All right, but in Blitz number 8, he had the black pieces against Oladapo Adu from Nigeria.
Let's take a quick look at this. Let's see what's going on. So he goes for the King's Indian again, and this is what I'm telling you. He knows his systems. And when you want to study an opening, one of the best things that you can do is find a player that you think understands the system well, and since Bassam is also a professional chess player, you can bet he's done some research and analyzed his openings and maybe come up with a few new ideas of his own. And once you find this player, just study his games really well and try to emulate that play. And the interesting thing about Amin is that he plays these systems both with white and with black. So, I don't know, if I was playing in the tournament, I would simply try to find a way to avoid his systems, you know, that he seems to understand so well. So, he clearly favors King's Indian type of pawn structure, so maybe why not play e4 against him instead of d4, preventing the King's Indian. So now after knight takes b4, rook c4, and I think we have another blunder blooper of the day. Because
oh boy.
This is not where you want your knights to be, right? I mean, at first I thought black would just go bishop takes, and after knight takes, bishop takes, you get 2 minor pieces for a rook. But, you know, this is still fairly complicated, but now it looks like you're just going to lose a knight. Bishop d2, bishop takes a4, and it's game over. So rook a1, knight c5, and okay, being up a piece. He usually wins without a material advantage if you give him an extra piece. He usually does pretty well when he's down a queen as well. So give him an extra piece, and this should be a walk in the park. And sure enough, he won this game. So let's move on to, what do we have here? Silva against El Adnani. Let's see what happened in this game. So we have a 4 knights Sicilian, knight takes c6. It's kind of a tricky move order because if you target this d6 square, you might soon find yourself playing a Sveshnikov Sicilian after e5, bishop g5 is a direct transposition. So knight takes c6 is the most direct approach, and after e5, knight d5, knight e4, queen c7, f4, queen b6, c4, bishop b4, king e2. This is a really fun line. It's a line that I've tried to play with both white and black, and I just can't get, you know, the hang of it. Because it's fun to put your king on f3 on move 10. Normally not something you get to do too often and, you know, live to tell the tale. But in these lines, it does seem like white is doing pretty well. So after bishop c5, d6, bishop d4, I'm starting to think I should take that back. This does not look good for white anymore. Now c5, bishop b7 is coming. I think, shouldn't white simply take e takes d6, and after knight f6, maybe try to trade queens before this king gets checkmated? This looks a little bit more promising than what happened in the game. So after bishop d4, king f3, c5, h4, this king is running, but even if you can avoid getting checkmated, black still has the bishop pair. He's got pressure on the queen side. He's got better king safety. Well, actually, white has the bishop pair as well, but you almost can't even tell. So queen d8, ba4, queen g5, hg5. Bishop takes a2. So sometimes, you know, I'm looking through these games, and I'm thinking, what a nice position for black. And then I see this, that it says that white won, and I'm like wondering, okay, where's the blunder, or when's the blunder coming? So, now I see. The tides are definitely turning. This queen trade really helped white a lot, because when you can define who has better king safety, that should pretty much tell you who the queen trade is going to favor. So this king on g3 was feeling very insecure when the queens were on the board, so I really didn't like this maneuver queen d8, queen takes g5 that black played. Now bishop takes e6, and oh, nice little tactic. After pawn takes check, king f8, bishop takes d8, and black can just resign here. So it seems after bishop takes e6, this game is pretty much over. Some more tactics. If rook takes bishop, rook c8 is checkmate. I believe that ends the game. Rook e8, rook c4, and I mean, I wouldn't call this a blooper because black's position is already pretty bad, but This is pretty much over, right? Takes, now we're down a piece. And we still have bad king. Well, maybe black can fix the king problem, but at a great cost. Now he's down a piece, and this game is over. All right.
You know, Robert, we're living in a golden age of chess technology. I mean, just the fact that we can do this is amazing. But
Yeah.
one of the improvements that I would really like to see, and it would be very important in Blitz events, is to have each move time-stamped, to see how much time is remaining on that player's clock whenever they make silly moves. You know?
Yeah.
Because that's part of the story.
The thing, though, is if you have a move that's time-stamped, the game's going by so fast, do you really have... Are you really just going to read how much time, like compare how much time do you spend here or there?
Well, no, I mean, it's easy. It would be fun for commentary purposes.
Oh, maybe.
You know?
Okay. Yeah, I think there...
Because after the game's over, it's like the time never happened.
Yeah.
You know the control, but you can't see that part of the story.
Yeah, and I think it was in the Soviet Union that they taught the players to actually record, on their score sheet to keep a record of the times they spent on each move. Both
Sure.
themselves and their opponent. This was considered a technique to avoid getting into time trouble. So you could keep an accurate record about what point in the game you were spending all your time on. Maybe you were spending too much time in the opening, not enough time, allotting enough time for the end game, and then you were just making a lot of blunders in the end game.
Of course, we're talking about classical chess
Yeah.
in that situation.
Yeah, but I think you could also extrapolate some ideas if you apply this to Blitz chess. The problem is when you're playing Blitz, you don't have time to notate the game. So
Absolutely not.
if you have some kind of recording device to do that for you, you could actually...
Hey, we have that.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah. So, in case you're wondering, our final Blitz round of the day, Blitz 9, starts in less than 3 minutes. And you can
my
watch
God.
along with us at chess24.com. Look for CIV, Rapid and Blitz. CIV is the trigram, of course, for
Civ?
Côte d'Ivoire,
Oh,
the Ivory Coast.
okay. I was wondering.
So what else did we have from round 8?
So we looked at a couple of games already. We saw Silva, El Adnani. We saw Adu against Amin.
Yes.
And we have a couple of other games. Well, we saw live, right? The Hadouche against Solomon.
Right. Did we glance at all the games?
No, we got 2 left.
Okay.
So let's see what happened in the game Belkodia against Rako Tomaharo.
By the way, Rakoto Maharo, I think, is one of the players we're going to have to watch this next round. By the
Oh,
way,
it's
but we'll get to
Rakoto
those.
Maharo?
He kind of glanced over the H.
Yeah,
you know?
he
It was
did.
kind of
I remember that.
Rakoto Maharo.
I noticed that as well.
Yeah,
Rakoto Maharo.
I think that's as good as
It
we're
sounds
gonna
it sounds cool, like Rako.
He's a cool guy.
I forgot already what you
It
said.
was a great interview.
Yeah.
Just I'll deal with it. Don't worry.
Yeah, you got this? Okay. So let's see. Opening looks like it was a Reti opening. Now, normally, when you play rook e8 is because you're trying to play e5, so I don't know how white's pawn was able to get to e5 so quickly. This might be giving white an advantage already. Perhaps, instead of going a5, a4 so quickly, black should try to reinforce this idea, which I think was interesting. But maybe if you, after e4, if you take and go e5, you might run into knight c4, putting pressure on e5, maybe threatening knight d6. I don't know if this pawn is hanging. Maybe you can just go rook e1, and it does seem like all of white's pieces are in play, not so much black's. So opening up the position could simply be good for white here. So maybe this is already better for white. So after a5, e4, a4, e5, this looks suspicious, to say the least. So rook b1, clearly trying to play for e6. So knight f8, taking control of the e6 square. Rook e1, c5, d4 takes, and knight c6. So at least black's pieces are coming out, but white should still be better, shouldn't he? I mean, this e5 pawn usually guarantees a little bit of an advantage. So let's see what happened. Took everything on d4 and played e6, queen d3, rook c8, h4. Yeah, so whenever you have a pawn on e5, this doesn't let your opponent defend the king side as well as he would like to, because the knight on f6 is the natural defender of your king. So when you chase it away with e5, you're always going to have to be worrying a little bit about king safety. And the normal pattern is to go pawn to h5, open up the h-file, see if you can get something going.
Robert, we might have to hurry this up because the next round is just about to get underway.
All right. Don't worry.
I don't mean to rush.
I'm getting there. I just really want to see, because I saw there was like a mating attack. And this is starting to look pretty dangerous for black, because white is really restricting black's pieces. So now g4 and f5 is coming. Black tried to sacrifice an exchange to get some play along the light squares, but this game is over now. I mean, you're up in exchange, you got the attack. Let's see how white finish this game off. So knight d6, you're down a piece basically with bishop h8, so even if you just trade queens and play the endgame, you should win pretty easily. So takes, check, check, and game over. Nice little tactic. If f6, you can sacrifice the queen and give checkmate. So a nice attacking game by Côte.
Yeah, good job to the Tunisian.
Yeah, he's definitely having a better leg of the tournament with the Blitz than the Rapid.
Right. I mean, and Ricardo Maharo, he's still, I mean, he's still one of the top contenders in this thing. If we can, let's take a look at this, not the standings, but the pairings going into round number 9. This is what we have to look forward to, and I think the one that sticks out to me is that one right in the middle. Ricardo Maharo against Mohamed Amin Haddouche. And we're following these two players because, well, Haddouche right now is live, tied for second place. Ricardo Maharo is tied for, in that big tie, for fourth place. So I think this is definitely the game of the round to watch. Okay, so I'm still working on some live video here, but the game should be active right now. Robert?
Yep, I've pulled up round 9. Is there anything that strikes your fancy?
Yes, absolutely. I've got to go with Ricardo Maharo against Mohamed Haddouche.
All right, I'll pull that game right up.
Scores.
I just wanted to mention real quick that in the Bassem Amin game, look at the kind of pawn structure that we're getting, kind of opening. Are we beginning to see a pattern emerge?
Well, I mean, this just plays into his hands.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's unreal how many games he's able to play. He has been able to play his system. But okay, I digress. Let's go to the Ricardo Maharo game. So what do we have here? We have a Perk defense, not a King's Indian. Again, the King's Indian would involve having a pawn on c4. But the ideas are going to be quite similar. I think usually black plays the Perk as a way of improving on the King's Indian, because you figure, okay, the knight is misplaced on c3 if it's in front of its own pawn, as opposed to the King's Indian where it's actually protected by the pawn on c4. Nevertheless, I think the Perk has a maybe undeservedly bad reputation. You mentioned the other day the book Perk Alert. So, do you play the Perk?
No, not at all.
No?
It's just a great title.
Perk
Best
Alert?
title of a book ever.
It like punctuates.
Perk Alert.
Perk Alert.
Perk Alert.
Yeah. Do you think anybody told him, it's Perks?
May not have cared.
No?
Yeah, may not have cared.
They probably would have chosen a different title if, pronunciation was a big deal.
Our director is making sure that we know it's Pearts.
Pearts?
Yeah.
Perks. All right, so we see this game progressing with the moves b5 and a3, and already we see one of the advantages of the Perk as opposed to the King's Indian. Since white doesn't have such a good grip on the queen side because he doesn't have a pawn on c4, this is going to give black the possibility to expand on that side of the board with b5. That's why normally, whenever black goes c6, we automatically play the move a4. So instead of rook e1, I would have played a4 here, containing black's expansion on the queen side. Now, black doesn't have to give up on this idea, but it's going to take him a long time to really carry it out if we play a4. Because if he goes a6, well, still can't play b5, but we can also play a5 and guarantee that a pawn never gets to b5, because we can just capture en passant, and after queen takes, black is left with an isolated pawn on the a file. So usually black will have to play b6, a6, bishop b7, and only then b5. Let's see what's happened in the game. So a lot of moves. After b5, a3, bishop b7, bishop g5, rook e8, queen d2, a5, takes, rook a d1, and queen c7. So this is really, I would say, a success for black from the opening's point of view. We've gained space on the queen side. Possibility of b4 is constant. And we also have very good control over the d5 square. So this knight on c3 doesn't have good prospects, whereas this knight on d7 does, because at some point we can try to play knight c5, put pressure on e4, maybe play rook a d8 or rook e d8. White needs to be careful in this position. He could easily run into some problems, especially if we go into an endgame. So here, I think white is counting on the fact that this rook on d6 can't be chased away so easily, because after rook takes f6, we get two minor pieces for a rook. And this is generally considered a good trade for white. So after queen d6, can we trade, or can we just simply play something like queen b6, trying to target this queen later with moves like bishop f8, or maybe even just rook a d8 and knight c5, trapping the queen. So in the game, black traded on d6. I don't know about this. I mean, if we can follow up with b4, this might work. So is b4 a problem? I don't think so, because we can take, although this would open up the a file for the black rook, and simply move our knight, say to e2, because we're not afraid of knight takes e4. Let's not forget that the knight on d7 is hanging. However, I don't like retreating my pieces. I don't like decentralizing in general, but retreating here is not the way to go. I think knight a4 is a much better move, because our knight is more active on a4 than on e2. And also, this black rook doesn't have as much pressure along the a file. And if b takes a3, b takes a3, we can actually use the b file for our own rook. So, a delicate position. Okay, so after rook takes d6, black went h6, trying to get this bishop out of here and relieve the pressure on the knight. Bishop e3, bishop f8, rook d1, knight c5. Yeah, and this is what I was afraid of. I think this is an excellent position for black. And the essence of black's advantage has to do with his minor pieces. The black knights are very well placed, whereas the white knights, not so much. Notice how these knights on f6 and c5 put pressure on e4. We also have a space advantage on the queen side. We might be threatening to go b4 at any moment and win the e4 pawn. And there's something to be said about the bishops as well, because this bishop on b7 doesn't look so hot. But we might be able to reroute it via c8 and e6, or a6 and b4. And this bishop on g2 also doesn't look so great, but I don't see that many possibilities for it, because we could try to go to f1, but let's not forget, we always have to keep an eye on the e4 pawn. So this bishop is somewhat restricted by its own pawn. So let's see if we have some more moves. Knight d2, so reinforcing control over e4. Now, is this the game we have on the camera?
Yes, indeed it is, and we were having a little bit of an issue earlier, but now this is the live shot.
Okay.
And so it looks like Hadush is going into a deep think here. And now remember, this is on a delay. I mean, on the board, on our DGT board, you see that Phi is on move.
Okay, so after knight d2, rook a d8, again, it's hard to argue with black's position. Every piece is centralized. Now the rook is coming to the open d file. Like we said, the knights are doing great. The bishop on b7 is the only one that doesn't look like it's living up to its full potential. But as I think what we've learned in this tournament is how dangerous the bishops are. if we simply protect them and tuck them away and save them for later, they can spring into action at any moment. And I have been particularly, I would say, picky about this pattern, right? Bringing the rooks to the center and then dropping the bishops back to their initial squares. So this is another case where that seems to work out quite well. Because notice that the bishops on c8 and f8 have some pretty good diagonals. So let's see. After rook d8, rook d8, knight b3, knight takes, pawn takes, knight d7, rook d2, knight c5, rook e d1, takes, and does this just win a pawn for black? Can we just go knight takes b3? Maybe you can go rook d7, but can I go rook e7 or you go rook d8 now? Maybe this is a little bit dangerous. So should I go bishop c8? And after rook c7? Maybe white is hoping that getting the rook to the 7th rank is going to compensate this pawn that he's down. Oh, okay. Nice little move here. After rook c7, instead of going bishop e6 and giving back the pawn, we can play knight d4, because after bishop takes, pawn takes, this knight is under attack. And if we start chasing this pawn, we might find that this pawn is chasing us. So after knight d4, white cannot capture. Played f4, bishop d6, rook a7. Now, I see some blooper potential.
Oh!
And that came out like
I'm trying not to get too excited.
Blooper
potential.
Yeah. But yeah, when you see your king and your rook on the same diagonal and there's bishops on the board, you should start feeling a little bit uncomfortable. For example, knight c2 doesn't really do much, or maybe it does, because if you move your bishop away from the g1 a7 diagonal, then we can go bishop c5. But if you go to f2, then I can take on f4. So what's going on here? Does knight c2 win something? Maybe against knight c2, I can simply go f takes e5. So we have some more moves here. After rook a7, black played bishop c5 right away. So threatening maybe knight f3 check, and if bishop takes e3 check, and then the bishop drops back and takes the rook too. So rook a8, f6, king f2, g5, f5. So overall, I think that white has done pretty good damage control. I mean, sure, black is up a pawn, but this white rook is active. It's putting a little bit of pressure on a5.
Oh my gosh, look at his time. Look at... Oh, okay, he's getting down there to about 4 seconds.
Oh, man. So the rooks got traded off, and black is just up a pawn. So this endgame should be bad news for white. I mean, all we have to do is prepare a timely c5, b4, or even c5, c4, and start targeting these pawns. If we do this right away, then this knight could come to d5, so maybe start with bishop f7. So the pawn did get to c4. This pawn on b2 is going to be a target forever. White's pieces look kind of cramped too, and we can never take on d4, because then black just goes e d4, and we have a pawn mess on the queen side. So, bad news for Rakotomaro.
Just let it flow.
It doesn't flow for me as well as it does for you, I think. So, yeah, it looks like this game is over. The pawn on b2 got traded for the pawn on c3, and now we're going to have to constantly watch out for the possibility of b4.
Let's take a look at the live shot if we can.
Yeah, can we go to like a full screen?
Well, and look at that. Just as soon as I talk, it freezes up. But I think it's safe to say right now, Mohamed Amin Hadouche has won the game. Yep. And so, I mean, now he's becoming firmly entrenched as a second-place competitor in this event. So we've one more game. Let's switch over quickly to Bassam Amin versus Slim Belhodja. That is the last game of the round we have live. We do not have video of that, so we can forget about that.
And it looks like Bassam in a little bit of trouble here, maybe. Or maybe he should be able to hold, but it seems like you're going to lose this pawn on g5. Okay, but he gets to take on b5, so he should be able to hold this, maybe? Because after I go knight takes g5, let's say I make some move. Which move, though? Let's say I go bishop a4, you go knight takes g5. I go check. If you start chasing after my b pawn, it might give me enough time to sack my bishop for your two kingside pawns. So I think this is, yeah, they agreed to a draw here. Well, not here, but let's see what happened. After king takes d5, bishop takes, knight e6 here, king e3. Yeah, it looks like white was able to sack the pawn for the bishop for the two pawns and secure the draw. But again, a strong showing by Slim Belkhodia in this Blitz portion of the tournament.
Yes, absolutely. And it's confounding, even with that 200-point advantage. Bassam Amin, no one has the answer to the riddle that is Bassam Amin. He hasn't lost.
Wrapped in an enigma?
Yes.
Okay.
Wrapped into something else I need to think of a word from. No, this is amazing stuff from him. And if we didn't think he was as impressive as we expected him to be in the Rapid, well, he was just getting warmed up.
He was, yeah, exactly. And now the nice thing, you know, when you secure such a comfortable lead is that you don't find yourself in the situation where you have to force games and maybe take unnecessary risks. So normally he might try to push this game for a win, but here it's like, oh, okay, if this ending's going to be a draw, I'm fine with that. I mean, I have like a 6 or 7 point lead. I'm just going to let them come and get me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now let's take a look at the standings after our first day of Blitz with just 9 rounds remaining. It all goes down tomorrow right here at chess24.com. And, oh, well, it's a little less ambiguous than how we started the day. Robert, what do you make of this?
Well, I think that first place is in the bag for Bassam Amin, but
unless there's a colossal collapse tomorrow.
I don't think there's going to be
it would be history.
Colossal collapse.
Colossal collapse.
That's a mouthful. So second place is a different story. I mean, Hadoush and Solomon are really slugging it out, and I could tell from the video feed of that Blitz game between them, they are not buddies. Like, they are going all out for second place, and, you know, let the chips fall where they may.
That's good to see that, though, because at least around here...
Did you see, like, all those hand gestures? You know, there's, like, it was
yeah,
kind of aggressive. Like,
yeah,
yo, what are you doing? Hey,
yeah.
How you doing?
Well, okay, so classical chess, if you ask, like, the top players in the world, is, you know, it's the king of the game, right? But when you have Rapid and Blitz, there's still something maybe in certain players' minds. It's like, it's more an exhibition, right? We're all friendly. Am I wrong on this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that these players are very competitive. That's what I like to see.
No, I mean, you were absolutely wrong. Because I think that when you play classical time control, you know, you've got this composure and you can control yourself, and, you know, you don't act on impulse. In Blitz, you let it all out. You just show what you're all about. You know, you can see a lot of body language that you usually miss out on. Hey, what's going on? You got your Skype going? Huh?
Skype has this amazing ability to override your computer's audio settings. It's quite amazing. It's the only...
So I really like Blitz because of that. I like how, you know, players' body language really comes out. You can tell when somebody blundered. You can tell when somebody's uncomfortable. You can tell when somebody doesn't like their opponent, too. And that's the most fun.
Well, so you're saying that the emotion is the same, but in Blitz it's more apparent.
Yeah, you don't have time to really, like, push it down and control it. It's more like it takes control. It's visceral.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah. So in just a moment, we're going to have Kenny Solomon back on the show.
Cool.
What would you like to talk to him about in this tournament? Any shining moments for the pride of South Africa?
Well, I'd ask him how he feels going into the last day, because he's got, a direct competitor here with Haddouche. Like, how does he feel about his chances against Haddouche in this second leg? Because now they have another game coming up, right? Because this is a round-robin event. Let's not forget that it's not just 9 rounds. It's 9 rounds against the same guys.
Right.
So,
So there'll be 27 games played for each player total at the end of this.
Right, but by now they all probably have a pretty good feel for each other. Like, they've played, 3 games?
They've all played each other twice at this point.
Well, no, because we had 1 leg of Blitz as well. So we had... Oh, no, but in the Rapids
Once
they only played
Rapid,
once.
once
Okay,
Blitz,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they've played twice. So maybe now they can get, like, okay, this guy, I can get him in the end game, or, his openings are strong, so I should just not go for too many complications right out of the gate.
Would they remember all of those details, though?
Oh, yeah.
Over this shorter period of time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, I remember stuff that has happened to me, like, years ago, and I still hold a grudge. So I would ask him, how he feels about his chances, but specifically as it relates to his race with Haddouche for second place. What do you think? Would that be a good question?
I think that's a great question.
Okay.
I can't wait to talk to him again.
Now, how did he do just now?
Yeah, we still have other games
Where's
we
his-
can look at, actually.
Yeah. Because he just won against Segwani, and how did Haddouche do? Haddouche also won. So these guys are, well, we just saw Haddouche's game, but let's see what Solomon did against Segwani. So d4, e6, have a Queen's Gambit decline, e3, a6, takes, bishop d3, and is this going to be a minority attack? Oh, this is one of my favorite pawn structures, and this is such a good opening in pawn structure to really learn good chess, because it's not so much about forcing variations as it is about general principles. White's idea is simply to go b5, take on c6, and play against the backward pawn. What could be more straightforward than that? Now, here, after bishop takes e4, bishop takes g5, bishop f5, usually what I expect against knight e4 is that white will take on e7, and after queen takes, take on e4. But okay. This seemed to work for white, so he gets a pair of knights against knight and bishop. Do we have Solomon on the line?
We'll be getting him quite shortly, actually.
Okay. So let's see if he actually managed to get this backward pawn on c6. It seems like he did. Oh, maybe not. So c4, queen c2, knight e5. Now, Ben, the thing about these very profound strategic openings is that for Blitz, they're kind of hard to play because you have to play on something very tiny. And in Blitz, things can get crazy very quickly.
Well, let's ask the man himself how it happened. Welcome into the show at this time, Kenny Solomon of South Africa. Welcome back to the show. It's great to have you back on.
Thanks. It's good to be back in the running.
So you are in a race to second place right now, it seems.
That's quite clear because Amin Bassem is a real world class, and it's clear we're not competing with him. So it's a race for second place, second and third, and So yeah, I think I was trailing by three points, about 3 or 4 points, and my strategy today was basically just to catch up in the Blitz. So yeah, I feel I had a very good day.
Yeah, definitely. Now, hi Kenny, this is Grandmaster Robert Hungaski. Now you are in a fight for second place, but right on your heels is Haddouche. Now you just played a very exciting game against him earlier today. How do you feel about your chances tomorrow? Because you guys have to play another game.
Yeah. We've played in the Rapid, and today the first leg of the Blitz.
Mm-hmm.
So we more or less have an idea of each other's style of play, and I think I have good chances.
What do you think his style is? Like, where would you try to guide the game? What kind of position do you want to make him play?
I think I would try to play a very sharp position.
Okay.
Because in the rapid event, he was strategically quite very strong with black pieces, and he was outplaying me, and I managed to escape with some tactics. Managed to create some play for some tricks, and I basically escaped. And today I escaped again because he had the white pieces this time, but then the Blitz came and he was squeezing me. I was a pawn down, which I managed to save in the end game.
Yeah, that queenside pawn structure didn't look very good going into that end game, but it looks like you were able to sacrifice some pawns and get active.
Yeah, I managed to do a couple of night jumps and okay, his extra pawn was the double F pawn, and that allowed me basically to escape with a draw. So I think I fancy my chances more in tactical skirmishes.
Okay,
against
and also we were watching the live video in the time scramble. It seemed like your opponent was like raising his hands or something. Now, was he making a claim, or what was going on? Did you notice this at all?
Yeah, no, that's very clear. It was a tense battle, and I offered him a draw.
Ah, okay.
Actually, I didn't do it correctly because you're supposed to move, then offer the draw, and then press the clock. But we both had like about 6 seconds, and we were going around with the king and knight, and I thought, okay, he's not making progress, offering a draw. But everything is so fast.
Right.
3 seconds. It's not like you're getting extra time, so. Yeah, so after the game, he was saying that I offered the draw too many times. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see that. That was the problem. And what do you think of the time delay? Are you used to playing with time delay as opposed to increment?
This is the first time we had a taste of this in the rapid. It was a 10-second delay, but for 3-second delay, it's more amped up. It's really tense.
Yeah, that's not a lot of time.
And in fact, in the earlier rounds of my game against Fai, he made an illegal move, and we were both under the impression that I won the game, but that's old rules,
Right? Yeah, we were just talking
get
about
the extra
that.
minute.
Yep. That changed recently.
We are still basically adapting to the new rules, and with the 3-second delay, which is quite interesting actually, and more difficult to play in my opinion. And I like it.
All right, agreed. Well, thanks a lot, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's Grandmaster Kenny Solomon of South Africa, a regular on this little broadcast of ours, and for good reason, as he competes to try to get into a solid second contention. Now, at this time, though, we have the man who is looking at solid first. Of course, we're talking about Grandmaster Bassem Amin. Welcome back to the show once again.
Hello, thank you.
So we were looking at your amazing streak, which was 9 games long, covering, crossing over from Rapid to Blitz. It ended in a draw, but still an amazing performance in this tournament, undefeated. Did you expect this coming in?
Yeah, well, of course, today was a very good day for me. Yeah, I'm really happy with my performance today because, yeah, most of the game were very tough and tense. Okay, I think I started to get a bit tired starting from round 6. I think my game with Fee was quite bad. I think, yeah, he should have at least drawn. Maybe he was clearly better at some point. But yeah, I was happy to win this. And okay, then last 3 rounds, I started to play a bit slow, I would say. Because in first games I was playing fast and good chess and was always ahead on the clock. Yeah, then I started to slow down a little bit. But yes, I'm happy, 8 out of 9 with no loss is, of course, a great result for me. And okay, getting so close from winning the tournament so makes me a bit more relaxed tomorrow, just to play to save my rating and hope to win some points.
Now, this format is 5 minutes with a 3-second delay, but I like to ask people, when you play Blitz casually, what's your favorite Blitz time control?
On board or online?
On board.
Well, I prefer 3+2.
Yes, that's mine. That's my favorite
guy.
Yeah.
All right,
that's the best. Yeah. That's
now
the best.
I have a
Online
question.
3+1 also I prefer.
Now,
I hate losing in time in completely winning position, just flagging people and stuff like that. I don't like.
yeah. Hi, Bassam. This is Robert Hungaski. Again, congratulations on your fantastic winning streak. I'm not going to ask you specifically about your games because the games speak for themselves, but I did want to point out that there seems to be a pattern in your games that with white you play the King's Indian attack and with black you play the King's Indian defense. Is it? Oh, we dropped the call.
Okay, well, we'll get him back in just a moment.
I was just going to ask my super question, too. It's like I
question.
set it up perfectly, and I was about to, bring it all home.
We have some time. We have some time to bring it home. Hey, here's that groovy Skype sound, and here we go.
Yeah, we're back.
All right.
So I was going to ask you, is this a strategy that you use for Rapid and Blitz in general, that you'll play the same type of systems with white and black?
Yeah, actually, I'm playing King's Indian attack and defense in classical games too. It's
Okay,
my main repertoire in classic chess too. So.
All right, so it's not just limited to Blitz and Rapid, because it seems like it does make your life easier, because you might not have to think so much in the opening. You know where all the pieces go and what kind of pawn structures are good and which ones you should avoid. So I think there's a lot of practical value to that.
It's actually extra good in Rapid and Blitz because I know the setups quite well, and it's also not familiar. I mean, for my opponents, they don't usually, especially King's Indian attack. So it's a bit familiar for me more than they are used to play. So I think it gives me some edge, especially in Blitz to get at least some extra time in the opening.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my sort of insight into the success of Bassam Amin in this leg of the impressive leg of the tournament.
Yes, indeed, and there's just one more day to go. Bassam, we look forward to seeing some of your games and probably talking to you again tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.
All right, good luck. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. From Egypt, the African champion, the whole continent, Bassam Amin.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the other games that happened in our final round. We have a little bit of time left.
Yeah, okay.
And we did not look at too much yet.
So, where should we start? Let's see. We have that draw, that endgame that we saw fizzle out into a draw by Bassam Amin. We didn't see the Kenny Solomon game to its completion, right? We were more or less up to this point when we started our interview with him, and it seemed like White's position was good, but I was feeling a little bit like, okay, you're playing for like a very minimal strategic advantage in a crazy blitz game. That might not be the best strategy. If we compare it, for example, to Bassam Amin's strategy of playing like the same system with white and black, playing it really fast, not worrying too much about getting an advantage, just getting your pieces out and maybe getting a little bit of a time edge on the clock as well. But anyway, this paid off for Solomon because he got a fantastic position. We see these white knights in the center, completely dominating the board. The knight on e5 especially heading for the c6 outpost. And soon, this evolved into a nice tactical shot because after queen e7, queen b2, takes, black played g5, thinking that he could push back the white knights, but he ran into this knight e7 check move. So if you play queen takes, your rook is unprotected. And if you move your king, now this knight doesn't have to retreat. It can just take your central pawn. And after this, white was completely winning. Black played c3, queen c2, rook a3, and now after rook takes, he resigned because he thought he had the move queen takes a3, but there's a knight on e7, so not quite a blooper because I think the position's already lost. But still, kind of a funny move, right? Rook a3, and then you just take your rook.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of a funny looking move.
So that was the move that catapulted Solomon to second place. Let's see what else we have. Did we look at, we did follow the Rakotomaro game. Rakotomaro, I keep forgetting.
Rakotomaro.
Once this tournament is over, I bet I'm just going to like nail it, and then I'll have nobody to say it to. So
it's usually how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we saw this one.
We did see this one. What about the El Adnani against Oladapo Adu game. Did we see this one?
I don't
All
think we did, no.
So d4, d6, knight f3, g6, bishop f4. We have pretty straightforward London system. And El Adnani sort of taking the Bassem Amin approach and playing the London system as white in pretty much all of his games, I think. And that is one of the big advantages of the London system, a system despised by all chess coaches around the world, because this is where you put too much emphasis on the practical value of an opening as opposed to some of the long-term benefits of studying, you know, some of the main lines, like we were just talking about. These minority attacks lead to very rich pawn structures. So it's important, if you like the London system, not to abuse it, but it is ideal for Blitz and Rapid. So this is usually worked out well for El Adnani, but not in this game. Now after knight c4, knight h5, queen c2, rook d8, bishop f1, bishop c6. This bishop on h2 that's usually so strong, maybe not having such a good time at the moment, because black is going to be able to play f6, and this bishop on h2 will be biting on granite. That's what I like to call it, when a bishop runs into a powerful pawn chain by the opponent. So b5 takes, and it looks like all of white's pieces are getting pushed back little by little. I'm not so crazy about this. Black's gaining space, maybe securing a future outpost on d3 for the knight. And now after knight d5, queen b7, bishop e2, knight f6, takes, bishop f3, and look at the quality of these bishops. Way superior than the bishops on h2 and f3. So already, black has a nice advantage here. Let's see, this game didn't last much longer. It looks like, so blundered the e4 pawn. And now after queen takes b5, queen e2, maybe he thought this wasn't a blunder because he gets the b5 pawn, but now after rook f1, this bishop on h2 is like a fat pawn. And imagine you had 3 pawns here on f2, g2, and h2. You might have some back rank problems because your king would like to escape via h2, but he can't. So after rook d8, black's threatening rook d1 and checkmate.
Wow.
So how are you going to deal with this?
Is there a way to deal with it? That's what I want to know.
Well, I was thinking maybe queen a4 is the only move here, because you have to stop rook d1. But here, even though I don't have rook d1, I could go rook d2 and start cleaning out your second rank, right? And take on b2, maybe later take on c3 and push the c pawn. Instead, white played b3, and after rook d1, can't stop checkmate. So he resigned. Yep, I like that. I like that.
I do.
You do?
I do,
You
with
do.
the victory. And I think we just have, that brings us to our last game, right?
Yep.
Andrew Kayonde and David Silva. Now, you know, I haven't really talked about David Silva too much, and I really should. From Luanda, Angola, the triple African junior champion, 20 years old. And, of course, we know a lot about Andrew Kayonde.
Mm-hmm.
Today they had a draw. Let's see it.
All right, so we have a King's Indian, bishop g5. This is called the Averbach variation.
After Yuri Averbach.
After Yuri Averbach. Now, I believe he is the only one that is still alive from that golden era of chess. I mean, you have Spassky as well, but you can count them in one hand.
When does the golden era end?
That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems a little arbitrary.
It is a little bit arbitrary, but I'm just going to call it the golden era because it sounds, you know, like I'm paying reverence
Yeah.
to a great generation of chess players. So c5, d5, and this is generally a technique that I like to employ against the King's Indian. The King's Indian basically wants us to close the center and castle kingside so that black can just attack us for free. And what I like to do as white is not that. So in general, with any opening, I try to figure out, well, what does my opponent want me to do? And then I'll do anything but that, just to frustrate them. And here the Averbach variation has no intention of castling kingside. So it's the reason why I think it's one of the most challenging setups against the King's Indian. Now, Black has changed his opening strategy from King's Indian to Benoni by combining the c5 and e6 moves. So after knight f3, takes, takes. Normally you don't want to take with your e-pawn. You want to go c takes d5 and at some point try to prepare this e5 pawn advance. But I'm guessing White was a little bit concerned with the move rook e8, but here we might be able to go e5 anyway. And this is actually exactly the kind of position White is aiming for in the Benoni pawn structures, right? This powerful pawn center. Now maybe after knight g4 we can't really keep our pawns on d5 and e5, but maybe we can, you know, start doing some annoying things like sacrificing this pawn and going d6, maybe kicking this knight out, going castle. We're down a pawn, but we have a powerful pawn on d6, threatening d7 by the way. And we also have better pawn structure. So I don't like e takes d5. I think this allows Black to really play a much freer game because he never has to worry about this annoying e5 pawn break. Knight e4, takes, takes, rook e1, knight b4, b3, a5. Yeah, I think Black has solved pretty much his opening problems. Bishop f5, bishop e2, and I guess this is how the draw came about, just a move repetition. Both sides trying to save themselves for the final day. So
It's going to be a great day tomorrow.
yeah.
I feel like I'm having a Revenge of the Nerds moment. It's going to be a great year.
I've never seen that movie.
You never seen it?
No, and I'm like a pretty big movie guy.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I've been saving it.
Well, so we've had a lot of action today. Of course, hopefully you tuned in earlier today and saw the 7 rounds that we weren't live for. But if you've been enjoying what you're seeing in this tournament, remember, this is the same format as the Rapid and Blitz events in the Grand Chess Tour. Mm-hmm. And the Grand Chess Tour this year has kicked off in a big way already with the tournament in Leuven, Belgium, Your Next Move. And then, of course, Paris Grand Chess Tour right after that. And in the Grand Chess Tour, we have 2 Americans at the top. And I tell you this because the Grand Chess Tour is coming to St. Louis, Missouri quite soon with back-to-back events. I'm talking about the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz and then the Sinkfield Cup. Now, this is the 2nd annual St. Louis Rapid and Blitz we'll be having, which the festivities kick off on August 10th at grandchesstour.org. Round 1, I believe, is on the 11th. The Sinkfield Cup is right after that, which is the only pure classical event on the Grand Chess Tour this year. And then the combined score from the tour, the top 4 players will meet in London in December, tentatively December, for the Grand Chess Tour Championship. Now, if you want to see these games and you're stateside, or you're not stateside, come to St. Louis. It's great here at the St. Louis Chess Club. We certainly invite you. The tournaments are back-to-back, August 10th through August 28th. The St. Louis Rapid and Blitz and the Sinkfield Cup. And interesting enough, you know, Wesley So has 21 Grand Chess Tour points. Hikaru Nakamura has 20. They're at the top of the leaderboard, but at the very bottom of the leaderboard is Fabiano Caruana with just 4 Grand Chess Tour points. He's realistically eliminated from contention. It's hardly any chance he goes to London for the final. But the intrigue starts in St. Louis because the Grand Chess Tour wild card for the Sinkfield Cup has been announced, and it is none other than the world chess champion himself, Magnus Carlsen.
Oh.
That will mean that in a classical game here in St. Louis next month, we will see Caruana versus Carlsen as a part of the Sinkfield Cup. And can Fabi hold it together? That's what I want to know.
Would you say that's going to be like a prelude to the World Championship?
That will be Game 0, the preview for the World Chess Championship coming up later this year in London. And London, my God, London has both the London Classic final for the Grand Chess Tour and the World Championship, and they're probably going to be like back-to-back. So, I mean, Fabiano might not make it to the Grand Chess Tour final, but, like, what if he did? Like,
You're going to have to, like, move to London for a while.
Yeah, like,
yeah, exactly.
It's going to be crazy. We hope you can join that. Join us for that at grandchesstour.org, but we're not there yet. We still have one more day of Blitz, in this Grand Chess Tour styled event. I'm talking about the Côte d'Ivoire Rapid and Blitz Invitational. Join us tomorrow. You'll notice that we're on the air 2 hours early. Here, I want you to take everything that you know about the time that we started and throw it away.
I can do that too.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's an important sheet. Oh, you shouldn't do that. But tomorrow, 16:15 UTC, will be on the air with you. And remember, the games start even earlier than that. You can go on chess24.com and check out the 7 rounds of Blitz. We will not be presenting to you live, but we will be glancing at some special games. Will Bassem Amin mathematically clinch the event before we go on the air?
Yeah, it's over. Yeah, that's
not even a possibility.
No?
No?
No.
Okay.
But second place should be fun, and I like doing these interviews, so come watch me do interviews.
Yes.
I feel like I get along with Kenny. Like we would be buddies if we just hung out.
Who wouldn't be buddies with him? What a
Do
guy.
you know him personally?
No, but I feel like I do.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I like Kenny.
Okay. Pardon me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. This show was produced by the world's greatest production B team. Tammy Hyde is a technical advisor. Isaac Schranz is on audio and graphics. Dennis LaRue is our technical director. I'm Ben Simon.
This is Robert Hungaski.
What are you doing over there?
Signing off.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like a little heart.
So that'll do it until tomorrow. 2 hours early. Be with us here at chess24.com. Until then, we say so long from the Show Me State. This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.